My brother texted, "There's no room for you on this year's Christmas trip." I just replied, "Okay," because it's the same every year. An hour later, my parents posted photos of the whole family and relatives. Even the Labrador was there. But when they found out I took my own vacation without them, everyone completely lost it. Okay, buckle up, because I'm about to tell you about the Christmas my family finally pushed me too far, and how that one brutal text message ended up changing my entire life. You know that feeling when you're supposed to be part of something, but you're just not? Like you're a ghost in your own story? For me, that feeling hit hard when I got a text from my younger brother that basically said, "Hey, no room for you this year." And honestly, that was just the beginning of the gut-wrenching revelation. My name is Philip, and I'm 28. I teach history at a high school, and I actually love it. I love watching a student's eyes light up when they finally get why the Constitutional Convention matters, or when they connect with the fight for civil rights. But to my family, my job was just nice. Not impressive, not brag-worthy, like my older brother Trevor, the corporate lawyer with the fancy car and the magazine model wife, Heather. And definitely not like my younger brother Jason, the charming craft brewery owner who's always the life of the party and constantly featured in local publications. I'm the middle child, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who gets forgotten. Not in some dramatic, movie-worthy way, but in those quiet, consistent little ways that just chip away at your soul over time. So, when Jason's text popped up on my phone, "Hey man, cabin's packed this year. Parents invited Aunt Linda's whole crew." No space. You understand. I just typed okay. What else was there to say? It was the same old story, just a different excuse. I knew that cabin like the back of my hand. I'd been going there since I was 7. I knew every creaky floorboard, every stuck window, every single bed configuration. It comfortably slept 12. I quickly counted in my head. Mom and Dad, Trevor and Heather, Jason, Aunt Linda and Uncle Ray, their 2 adult kids, Marcus and Julie. That's 9. Even if Jason brought someone, that's 10. 11, maybe, if you squeezed. An hour later, scrolling through social media, it hit me. Like a punch to the gut. My parents had posted photos from the airport. There they were, the whole extended family, beaming, ready to board their flight to Lake Tahoe. Cousins, aunts, uncles, Trevor, his perfect wife, and even their Labrador retriever, Max, tongue hanging out happily. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. My suitcase, packed 2 weeks ago with a naive hope that this year might be different, sat by my apartment door in Sacramento, a silent, mocking witness to my perpetual invisibility. Then my phone buzzed again. Instagram. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. My cousin Julie had posted a boomerang video, everyone at the airport gate, laughing. And there was Jason, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. The caption, "So excited Emma gets to experience the family Christmas tradition and her sister, too." I sat very, very still. Jason had brought his new girlfriend, Emma, and her sister. That's why there was no room. They had chosen 2 strangers over me. 2 strangers who probably knew my family for all of 5 minutes. They had made room for the dog, but not for me. This wasn't new. This was a pattern, a timeline of small betrayals stretching back years. 2 Thanksgivings ago, I'd quietly mentioned I couldn't eat gluten because of a medical issue. My mom had nodded, said she understood. Then she served a meal where everything had wheat. When I made myself a silent salad from the vegetable tray, she'd sighed loudly. Well, I guess some people are just too picky to enjoy family holidays. I hadn't corrected her. I just ate my salad and smiled. When Trevor got engaged, they threw him this huge party. I was told about it a week before, too late to find a +1. Even though I was dating Amanda at the time. I showed up alone, spent the night watching my parents fawn over Heather, refilling chip bowls, taking out trash. Unpaid labor. When Jason opened his brewery, I drove 3 hours to Portland, so excited to support him. I walked in, and he immediately handed me an apron. "Hey, can you help serve?" One of my staff called in sick. I spent the entire night working his event while he soaked up praise and gave tours. I never got to just be his brother, celebrating his success. And last year, I earned my master's degree. 3 years of night classes while teaching full-time. I was so damn proud. My parents promised they'd be there for graduation. The morning of, my mom called. "Honey, we completely forgot Jason's birthday dinner is tonight. We already made reservations." You understand, right? We'll celebrate you another time. They never did. Every single time, I swallowed the hurt. I told myself that keeping the peace was more important than my feelings. I convinced myself that being the steady, reliable one was a role that mattered. But Amanda, my girlfriend at the time, saw what I couldn't. 6 months ago, she broke up with me. We were sitting in her car, and she turned to me, tears in her eyes. Philip, I love you, but I can't watch you disappear anymore. You put everyone else first. Your family treats you like you don't matter, and you just accept it. You're so busy being invisible that you've forgotten you actually matter. I can't be with someone who doesn't value themselves. I tried to argue. You don't understand family dynamics. But she just shook her head. I understand that the people who love you shouldn't make you earn basic respect. I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. Now, sitting alone in my apartment, with that packed suitcase going nowhere, her words echoed in my head. I looked at that airport photo again. They all looked so happy, so complete. And I wasn't there. For the first time in my life, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was more like a stark, cold clarity. I had requested time off work 2 months ago, specifically for this trip. I'd bought gifts for everyone. I'd been looking forward to the smell of pine, the crunch of snow, the warmth of the fireplace. But they hadn't made room for me. They had made room for Jason's girlfriend and her sister. They had made room for the dog. But not for me. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, opened my laptop. My hands hovered over the keyboard for a moment. Then I typed, Sedona, Arizona resorts. The screen filled with images of glowing red rocks, luxury casitas, hiking trails that looked like another planet. I'd never been to Sedona. I'd never really traveled alone. Family vacations were always group affairs, my preferences never asked, rarely considered. I clicked on a boutique resort, Desert Sanctuary. Small, 20 rooms, each a private casita with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking mountains. Spa, restaurant, hiking access. Dates, December 23rd to 30th. Available. My cursor hovered over book now. This felt reckless. This felt selfish. This felt like something the old Philip would never do. I clicked. The price made me wince, but I had savings. I'd been setting money aside for months, thinking I might need it for family emergencies. My mom's car was making noises. My dad wanted to redo the deck. I was always waiting to be needed, but I was never needed. I was just expected to be available. I entered my credit card information, clicked confirm. My heart raced. I had just spent $2,000 on a solo vacation to Sedona. I'd never done anything like this before. I spent the next 2 hours booking everything I'd always wanted to do but never suggested because someone else would have complained. A guided sunrise hike up Cathedral Rock, a hot stone massage, a pottery class, reservations at 3 restaurants that had been on my list for years. By the time I finished, it was almost midnight. My suitcase still sat by the door, but now it was packed for a completely different trip. Hiking boots instead of snow boots. Layers for desert temperature swings instead of heavy winter coats. I thought about calling my parents, texting Jason. But what would I say? That I was hurt. They already knew I was excluded and hadn't cared. That I was going on my own trip. They'd probably be relieved they didn't have to feel guilty about the cabin. So, I said nothing. On December 23rd, I woke up early, finished packing, double-checked my flight. Just before calling a rideshare, I opened Instagram and posted a photo. It was just my boarding pass to Phoenix, with a simple caption, taking some time for myself this holiday. I turned off my phone before I could see if anyone reacted. I didn't want to know. I just wanted to go. The flight was smooth. I had a window seat and watched California turn into Arizona. As we descended into Phoenix, I saw the red rocks in the distance, and something in my chest loosened. I rented a car and made the 2-hour drive north to Sedona. The landscape shifted gradually, desert floor rising into those impossible red formations that seemed to glow from within. By the time I pulled into the resort, the sky was ablaze with orange and pink. Check-in was easy. The woman at the desk was warm, efficient. Casita 7, she said, one of the best sunset views. Enjoy your stay, Philip. The casita was perfect. King bed, fireplace, an entire wall of windows opening onto a private patio. Beyond it, the red rocks rose like ancient sentinels. I stood on the patio and took a deep breath. The air smelled like juniper and earth. It was quiet, just the occasional bird call. I was completely alone, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, alone felt like peace instead of punishment. That evening, I walked to a cozy restaurant I'd read about. Wood-beam ceilings, a menu that changed daily. I got a table by the window, Main Street decorated with luminarias and white lights. I ordered a glass of wine and grilled trout, opening a historical fiction novel I'd been trying to finish for months, the kind of thing you never have time for when you're always helping someone else. "Is that the new Anthony Dorr?" a voice beside me asked. I looked up. A woman my age, dark hair in a ponytail, wearing hiking clothes. She smiled apologetically. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Just finished that book last month and loved it." "No worries," I smiled back. "And yes, it is. Only about 100 pages in, but it's incredible." "Mind if I join you?" she asked. "All the other tables are full, and eating alone on Christmas Eve feels a little too sad, even for me." I gestured to the empty chair. "Please." By the time we finished dinner, it felt like I'd known her for years. We exchanged numbers, made vague plans to cross paths on a hike. As I walked back to my casita under a sky full of stars, I realized I'd had more meaningful conversation in one evening than I had with my family in months. I fell asleep that night to complete silence, windows open. I didn't think about the cabin, or my family, or what I was missing. I just slept. Christmas Eve morning, my phone buzzed like it was possessed. I turned it back on to set an alarm for my sunrise hike. Apparently, that was a mistake. 73 missed calls. Over 100 text messages. Voicemails filling up my inbox. I sat up in bed, confused and a little alarmed. Had someone died? I opened my messages. "My mother, where are you?" "My father, this is unacceptable. Call immediately." "Jason, dude, what are you doing?" "Trevor, you are being incredibly selfish." "Aunt Linda, your poor mother is beside herself." I scrolled through message after message, my confusion slowly turning to anger. What were they talking about? I'd been told there was no room. I'd made other plans. Why did they even care? Then I found a longer message from my mother. "Philip, we had a surprise planned for you at the cabin. We've been saving money to help you buy a house, and we're going to tell you on Christmas morning." The whole family was in on it. "We thought you'd show up anyway because family is family. We never actually thought you wouldn't come. Now Christmas is ruined, and it's your fault. Call me immediately." The anger that had been simmering since I saw that airport photo finally boiled over. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, reading through the barrage. My mother's texts became increasingly manipulative. "After everything we've done for you, how could you abandon your family on Christmas? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Everyone keeps asking where you are, and we have no answer." Jason's message, sent around 3 a.m. "Look, I know the girlfriend thing was complicated. Emma really wanted to bring her sister, and I thought you'd understand. You're always so chill about this stuff. I figured you'd just make other plans or whatever. I didn't think you'd actually bail on the whole family. Mom is losing it. Can you just call her and smooth this over?" Trevor's messages were colder, more accusatory. "Mom has been crying for 2 hours. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Aunt Linda is upset. This whole trip is a disaster now because you decided to throw a tantrum. Grow up, Philip. Family means showing up even when it's inconvenient." I stood and walked to the window. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the red rocks in gold and coral. It was breathtakingly beautiful, and I was standing here reading messages from people who had excluded me and were now furious that I hadn't read their minds. I noticed something crucial as I read through all the messages. Not a single person had apologized for telling me there was no room. Not one of them had acknowledged that they had explicitly excluded me. They were all angry that I hadn't magically appeared despite being told not to come. And the house money thing? It felt particularly hollow. My parents had never once asked me if I was looking to buy a house. They had never asked what I actually needed or wanted. They had just decided on a grand gesture that would make them feel good, and expected me to be grateful. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I wrote one simple message to the family group chat. I was told there was no room. I made other plans. Enjoy your holiday. I muted the group chat and set my phone face down. I got dressed for my sunrise hike, pulled on my boots, grabbed water. The trail to Cathedral Rock started right from the resort. The morning air was crisp and cool. As I walked, I tried to let the anger go, to focus on the stunning landscape. Halfway up the trail, I ran into Claire. She was sitting on a boulder, watching the sunrise. She waved. "Couldn't sleep either?" she called. I climbed up to where she sat. Family drama, I said. She patted the rock beside her. Want to talk about it? I told her everything. The messages, the supposed surprise, the expectation that I should have shown up anyway. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you what I see? She asked. I see a family that took you for granted for so long that they can't handle you finally setting a boundary. They're not upset because they miss you. They're upset because you're not playing your role anymore. Her words hit me hard because they were true. I had always been the peacekeeper, the one who absorbed everyone else's dysfunction so they didn't have to deal with it. And now that I'd stopped, they didn't know what to do. We hiked the rest of Cathedral Rock together, reaching the top just as the sun fully cleared the horizon. The view was incredible. Miles of red rock formations stretching in every direction, the desert floor far below. Claire took a photo of me, arms spread wide, grinning like an idiot. Send that to your family, she said. Show them you're doing just fine. We hiked back down as the day grew warmer. Claire told me about her own journey with family boundaries, about the years she spent being the scapegoat until she finally started saying no. It was the hardest thing I ever did, she said. But it was also the most important. Because once I stopped trying to earn their love, I could finally see who actually loved me for real. That afternoon, I went to a candlelight meditation session. Just a quiet space for reflection. I sat in a pew and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down for years. The hurt, the anger, the grief for the family I wished I had. When I left, I felt lighter. Not healed, but honest. I had stopped pretending. Back at the casita, I made the mistake of checking my phone again. More voicemails. I listened to one from my father. His voice was tight with anger. You will call your mother right now and apologize. This behavior is unacceptable. We raised you better than this. I don't know what has gotten into you, but it ends now. Call her back. I deleted the voicemail. I was about to turn my phone off again when it rang. Caller ID, Grandma Ruth. She was my father's mother, 86 years old, and the one person in my family who had always made me feel seen. She hadn't been on the cabin trip because of her heart condition. I answered. Hi, Grandma. Philip? Honey, I need to tell you something. Her voice was serious. And I need you to listen carefully. Okay, I said, sitting down on the patio. Your parents are lying to you. There was no house money surprise. I went very still. I talked to your mother this morning, Grandma Ruth continued. She was upset, going on and on about how you ruined Christmas, so I asked her about this house money she was supposedly going to give you. She got real quiet. Philip. Then she admitted they made it up last night. The truth is, everyone at the cabin kept asking where you were. Aunt Linda apparently made a comment about how they couldn't make room for their own son, but found room for strangers. Your parents were embarrassed. They had no good answer. So they concocted this story about a surprise to make you look like the bad guy for not showing up. They're rewriting history to save face. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, as my grandmother continued. I have watched them do this to you your whole life, sweetheart. I should have said something sooner, and I'm sorry I didn't. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you for finally putting yourself first. You don't owe them an apology. You don't owe them anything. Don't you dare let them make you feel guilty for this. Grandma, I managed to say, my voice rough. Thank you. You enjoy your trip, honey. You deserve it. And when you get back, you come have dinner with me. Just us. I want to hear all about it. After we hung up, I sat on the patio for a long time, watching the light change on the rocks. My family had lied to me. They had created an entire false narrative to avoid accountability. And if Grandma Ruth hadn't told me, I might have believed it. I might have apologized. I might have spent the rest of my life thinking I had been the one in the wrong. But I knew the truth now, and there was no going back. Christmas Day started with another sunrise hike, this one solo. I needed time alone, and the trails provided it. The red rocks looked different every hour as the light changed. I found myself noticing details I would have missed if I'd been talking. The way juniper trees grew out of impossible cracks, lizards sunning themselves, the absolute silence broken only by wind and my own footsteps. As I hiked, years of memories replayed in my mind with new clarity. Things I had explained away or minimized now looked entirely different through the lens of Grandma Ruth's truth. The Thanksgiving I supposedly chose not to attend, I had the flu, a fever of 102. My mother had said, "Oh, that's too bad," then never mentioned rescheduling or bringing me leftovers. 2 weeks later, she'd announced to the whole family, "Well, Philip decided not to join us for Thanksgiving this year," making it sound like a choice. Every single instance followed the same pattern. Exclude Philip, then reframe it as Philip's choice or Philip's problem when he reacted. They'd been doing this for so long. They probably believed their own revisions. I sat on a boulder at the summit of Bell Rock, looking out at the vast Arizona landscape. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to defend myself. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to try to make them understand. I was just going to live my life. And they could be part of it or not, but only on my terms. By the time I hiked back down, it was almost noon. I showered, changed, and headed to the pottery class. My bowl was lumpy and uneven, but I made it with my own hands, and it was mine. When it wobbled off center, the instructor, Margaret, just laughed. "Perfect is boring," she said. "Character is what makes art interesting." I thought about that. My family wanted me to be perfect, which really meant silent and accommodating. But I was finally discovering that I had character, and that was better. After class, I had a massage. I'd always thought it was self-indulgent, but as the therapist worked out knots I didn't even know were there, I realized this wasn't indulgence. This was care, and I deserved care. Dinner was at a steakhouse on my list. I ordered exactly what I wanted without considering anyone else's preferences: a ribeye, medium rare, garlic mashed potatoes, a good red wine. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, reading my book between courses. As I finished dessert, my phone buzzed. Claire had texted, "Some of us solo travelers are having a bonfire at the resort tonight if you want to join. 8 p.m. by the fire pit. No pressure." I showed up at 8 with a thermos of hot chocolate. 6 people were gathered around the fire pit, which was set into a stone patio with a view of the stars. Claire introduced me to everyone. Marcus, a therapist from Boston. 2 best friends from Chicago who'd skipped their family dramas to travel together. A retired couple from Minnesota who couldn't face another Christmas of well-meaning relatives asking invasive questions. We talked for hours about family, about boundaries, about what it meant to choose yourself. Marcus, the therapist, said something that really stuck with me. "The people who genuinely love you don't make you earn basic respect. If you're constantly auditioning for someone's approval, that's not love. That is control." I told them about the fake house. Money surprise. Everyone's reaction was the same: anger on my behalf. Not one person suggested I should understand my family's perspective or give them the benefit of the doubt. They all agreed that making up a lie to manipulate me into feeling guilty was cruel. "Here's what I tell my clients," Marcus said. "You cannot control other people's behavior, but you can control your response. And sometimes the healthiest response is to simply stop participating in dysfunction." Anna, one of the women from Chicago, raised her mug. To stopping participating in dysfunction. We all toasted. It felt like a turning point. I got back to my casita after midnight, tired in that good way that comes from meaningful connection. I checked my phone one more time. More messages from my mother about how I was ruining her holiday. Jason saying I needed to fix this. My father demanding I call. But there was one message that stood out. From Trevor. It was long, and it was different. "Philip, I need to tell you something. And I need you to know I'm saying this without Mom and Dad's knowledge. They asked me to lie and say the house money thing was real. They wanted me to back them up, to help sell the story so you would feel guilty and come crawling back. I went along with it at first because that's what I always do. I'm the good son. I keep the peace. But Jason and I were talking tonight after Mom and Dad went to bed, and we realized something. We've both been treating you the way they do, like you're disposable, like your feelings don't matter as long as we get what we want. I have been complicit in this for years. And I am sorry. I don't know if that matters to you anymore, but I am really, truly sorry. I told Mom and Dad an hour ago that I am not participating in the lie. They are furious with me now. Jason is still on their side, still thinks you're overreacting. But I am done. I am done watching them scapegoat you and pretending I don't see it." I read the message 4 times. Trevor, the golden child, the one who had always been held up as the example I should follow, was seeing the pattern too. For the first time in my entire life, I wasn't completely alone in this. I texted back, "Thank you for telling me." That took courage. His response came immediately. "I should have had courage years ago. I'm sorry it took this long." I fell asleep that night feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not hope that my family would change, but hope that I could have genuine relationships with at least some of them. And that was enough. The next 2 days passed in a blur of beauty and peace. I hiked every morning, sometimes with Claire, sometimes alone. We visited art galleries, and I bought a small painting of Cathedral Rock at sunset to remind me of this trip, of the moment I chose myself. Trevor kept texting updates. My parents were livid. He refused to support their lie. Jason had called him a traitor. The atmosphere at the cabin was tense. Aunt Linda and Uncle Ray had started asking uncomfortable questions about why the family treated me the way they did. I think I might leave early, Trevor texted on December 27th. Being the favorite came with its own cage, and I'm realizing I've been just as trapped as you were. Don't leave the cabin early because of me, I told him. Stay? Set your own boundaries. Show them what it looks like to say no without leaving. You're trying to change. That matters. On December 27th, my phone rang while I was having lunch. Aunt Linda. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Philip, I owe you an apology. Her voice was thick with emotion. I should have said something years ago. I have watched your parents treat you like you don't matter, and I have stayed silent because I didn't want to cause family conflict. But that makes me complicit. I am so sorry. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you for saying that. Ray and I are cutting our trip short, she continued. We're not comfortable watching them scapegoat you and pretend it's your fault. We're driving home tomorrow. But when everyone is back, we'd love to take you to dinner. Just us. If you're willing. I would like that, I said. After she hung up, I sat in the cafe for a long time, watching tourists. The family structure I had thought was solid was cracking, shifting, revealing what had been hidden underneath all along. That evening, my phone rang again. My mother. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hi, Mom. Philip. Her voice was tight. I think we need to discuss your behavior. Something in me hardened. No, Mom. We need to discuss yours. Silence. Then, excuse me. You told me there was no room at the cabin. You made a choice to exclude me. Then you got embarrassed when people asked where I was, so you made up a lie about a surprise to make me look like the bad guy. Grandma Ruth told me the truth. Your grandmother has no idea what she's talking about, my mother said, but her voice wavered. Don't lie to me anymore, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not auditioning to be part of this family. Either I am your son and I am treated with basic consideration, or I am not. But I am done being the punching bag. I am done being excluded and then blamed for my own exclusion. I am done. Philip, you are being incredibly dramatic. No, I am being honest for the first time in my life. And if you can't handle that, then we have a bigger problem than Christmas plans. More silence. Then, I need to talk to your father. She hung up. I sat on my casita patio, shaking slightly. I had just confronted my mother. I had stated clear boundaries. I hadn't yelled or been cruel. I had just told the truth. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. My father. I answered, bracing for anger. Instead, I heard something I had never heard before in his voice. Genuine remorse. Philip. He cleared his throat. Your mother is crying, but not for the reason you think. I just told her the same thing. We have been horrible to you. I don't have an excuse. I think we took you for granted because you never complained, because you always just accepted whatever we did. That's not a reason. It's just the truth. His voice cracked. Trevor called me yesterday. He told me what he sees, what he has been part of for years. Aunt Linda called this morning and said the same thing. And I am looking at the pattern, son. And I am ashamed. I couldn't speak. My father had never admitted to being wrong about anything in my entire life. I don't know if you can forgive us, he continued. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see how we have treated you, and I am going to do better. We are going to do better. Not because you forced us to see it, but because you deserve better. You have always deserved better. We talked for almost an hour. He didn't make excuses. He didn't ask me to forgive him right away. He just listened when I told him about years of hurt, and he owned every bit of it. When we finally hung up, I felt wrung out, but also strangely hopeful. I didn't trust it yet. Words were easy. Change was hard. But for the first time, my father had actually listened. I spent the last 2 days of my trip in quiet reflection. I hiked. I read. I sat on my patio and watched the light change on the rocks. Claire and I had breakfast together on my last morning. She gave me a hug that felt like it came from an old friend. You did something really brave, she said. Not just coming here, but holding your ground. Don't let them convince you. Otherwise, we exchanged promises to stay in touch, and I meant it. She had been a mirror for me, showing me what it looked like to choose yourself without apology. On the drive back to Phoenix, I thought about what I actually wanted. I didn't want to cut my family off completely. Despite everything, I love them. But I also knew I couldn't go back to being invisible. I needed them to see me. And if they couldn't or wouldn't, then I needed to be okay walking away. The flight home felt different. I was returning to my life, but I was not the same person who had left. When I got back to my apartment on January 2nd, there was a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten envelope, Trevor's return address. I opened it. 3 pages long. A detailed apology, an acknowledgement of every time he had been complicit in my exclusion, a commitment to change, and an invitation. When you are ready, I would love to take you to dinner. Just us. No parents, no Jason. Just brothers trying to figure out how to be better. There was another letter from Aunt Linda and Uncle Ray. Similar sentiments. Gratitude for my courage. An invitation to dinner. Nothing from Jason yet. My phone rang. My mother. I answered cautiously. Your father and I would like to meet you for coffee, she said. No preamble. If you are willing. Okay, I said. Tomorrow afternoon. The cafe on J Street. They were already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table. My mother looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. My father stood when I walked in, an old-fashioned gesture he'd never done before. We sat. The silence was heavy. My mother spoke first. I owe you an apology. The words came out stiff, uncomfortable. She wasn't good at this. The extended family's reactions at the cabin made me see things I had been ignoring. I favored Trevor's success and Jason's charisma because it made me feel like I had done something right as a parent. You were steady and good, and I took that for granted. I assumed you didn't need attention or praise. I was wrong. My father jumped in, more direct. We were lazy parents to you, Philip. You didn't demand things, so we didn't give them. That's not your fault. That's ours. I sat very still, letting their words settle. What do you need from us? My father asked. I had thought about this on the plane ride home. Consistent effort. Include me in planning, not as an afterthought. Respect my time and my choices. And no more rewriting history. When you mess up, own it. Don't make me the problem because it's easier than admitting fault. They both nodded. My mother's eyes were wet. Can we try? She asked. I know we don't deserve another chance, but can we try? Yes, I said. But if it goes back to the old patterns, I'm walking away. I mean that. Understood, my father said. We talked for another hour. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. As we were getting ready to leave, the cafe door opened and Jason walked in. He stopped when he saw us, clearly surprised. My mother waved him over. He sat down awkwardly, defensively. I didn't know we were having a family meeting. We weren't, I said. Mom and Dad asked to meet me for coffee. Jason looked at me, then at our parents. So, are we all just going to pretend that Philip didn't bail on Christmas? Trevor, who I hadn't noticed come in behind Jason, spoke up. Stop. Just stop, Jason. He sat down at our table. Philip doesn't owe you comfort while you justify hurting him. Either apologize for real or don't, but don't make excuses. Jason's face went red. He opened his mouth, closed it. Then, slowly, something shifted in his expression. I have always been jealous of you. I stared at him. What? You're good at relationships, Jason said quietly. Your students love you. You have this calm I've never had. People trust you. I excluded you because including you made me feel less special. That's pathetic, but it's true. I'm sorry. The table went silent. I don't know how to fix this, Jason said, looking at his hands. Start by meaning it when you include me next time, I said. He nodded. Okay. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was real. 3 months passed. They weren't perfect months, but they were different ones. Trevor and I started having dinner together once a month, real dinners where we talked about actual things, not surface-level family updates. He told me about his marriage, which was struggling because he'd built his whole identity around work and success. I told him about my students, the ones struggling and the ones thriving. We talked about our parents, about the patterns we'd learned and were trying to unlearn. One night over pasta, Trevor said something that surprised me. Being the favorite destroyed me in ways I'm only now seeing. I was never allowed to fail or be vulnerable. You at least were allowed to be human. I would have preferred being seen, I said. I know. I'm not saying my experience was harder. I'm just saying we were both damaged by the same system in different ways. Aunt Linda and Uncle Ray became unexpected allies. They invited me to their house for Sunday dinners, just the three of us. Aunt Linda told me stories about my father as a kid, about how his own parents had played favorites. It didn't excuse his behavior, but it helped me understand it. Jason's change was slower, more inconsistent. He would include me in plans, then forget to follow through. But when I called him on it, he apologized instead of getting defensive. Small steps. My parents followed through in ways that mattered. When Easter planning started, my mother called me first and asked what dates worked for me. When my father heard I was thinking about buying a new car, he showed up at my apartment with Consumer Reports and spent 3 hours helping me research options. They were trying. It was imperfect and sometimes awkward, but it was real effort. In March, I started dating someone new. Her name was Sarah, a librarian I met at a community event about local history. She was kind, funny, and actually interested in my work. When I told her about the Christmas situation, she didn't pity me or tell me I was brave. She just said, "Good boundaries are attractive." I invited Sarah to a family dinner in April. I was nervous, expecting my parents to compare her to Heather or make awkward comments. Instead, my mother asked Sarah about her work, genuinely interested. My father told embarrassing stories about me as a kid, but they were affectionate instead of mocking. Jason asked if Sarah had any brewery recommendations. Trevor and Heather invited us to a concert. It was the first family dinner where I felt like I belonged. A small moment happened that meant everything. My mother was serving dessert, and she came to me first. "I got that pie you like, Philip. The apple one from the bakery on 15th Street. She had remembered. She had gone out of her way. It was such a small thing, but it was everything. Jason slipped up sometimes. In May, he sent a group text about a family barbecue at his place and forgot to include me. But an hour later, he texted me directly. "I messed up. You are invited. Please come. I am sorry." The old Philip would have said it was fine and swallowed the hurt. The new Philip said, "Thank you for apologizing. Yes, I will come, but please add me to the group chat so this doesn't keep happening." He did. Grandma Ruth and I had dinner once a week. Just us. She told me she was proud of me at every single meal, and I never got tired of hearing it. "You broke a cycle," she said. "That takes courage most people never find." Claire and I stayed in touch. We texted regularly, and in June she came to visit Sacramento for a weekend. We hiked in the foothills, had dinner at my favorite local spots. "You seem different," she said. "Lighter." "I feel different," I said. In July, I planned a trip back to Sedona. I invited Trevor and Sarah. I invited my parents too, but I made it clear. This was my trip, my plans, and they were welcome to join, but not to take over. They came. We hiked Cathedral Rock together. My father struggled with the altitude, but kept going. My mother took photos of the red rocks and said, "I see why you love it here." On the last night, we had dinner at the same restaurant where I had met Claire. I told them the story of that first night, of sitting alone and feeling peace instead of loneliness. "I'm glad you came here," my mother said quietly. "I'm glad you chose yourself." It was the closest she had come to fully owning what had happened. I accepted it. Summer turned to fall. My students started a new school year. A junior named Marcus, who reminded me of myself at that age, stayed after class one day. "Mr. Phillip, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure," I said. "How do you deal with family stuff? Like, when they make you feel invisible?" I thought about it. I learned that I had to be visible to myself first. I had to believe I mattered even when other people acted like I didn't. And then I had to be brave enough to say, "This is how I need to be treated." Some people will rise to that. Some will not. But either way, you'll know where you stand. He nodded slowly. "That makes sense." As he left, I thought about that conversation. I had become the person I needed when I was his age. That felt like purpose. In October, planning for Christmas began. The group text started with my mother asking everyone's availability. I was included from the first message. Jason suggested the cabin again. I felt my stomach tighten. Old wounds, not quite healed. Trevor texted separately. "If you don't want to do the cabin, I will back you up." I thought about it. Then I responded to the group. "I'm okay with the cabin, but I want to be part of the planning this time, not just told when to show up." My mother called me an hour later. "What do you want this Christmas to look like?" We planned it together, all of us. Dates that worked for everyone. Food preferences actually considered. Space allocated fairly. It wasn't perfect, but it was inclusive. When Christmas came, I drove to Tahoe with Sarah. We had our own room this time, not a couch or a sleeping bag on the floor. The cabin smelled like pine and cinnamon and wood smoke. All the smells I had loved as a kid. Jason greeted me at the door with a hug. "Glad you're here, man." Trevor helped with my bags. My parents both hugged me. Real hugs that felt like they meant it. That week wasn't perfect. Old patterns surfaced sometimes. But when they did, I addressed them calmly and clearly, and most of the time, people corrected course. On Christmas morning, we opened gifts. My parents gave me a framed photo from Sedona, the one Claire had taken of me at the top of Cathedral Rock, arms spread wide. "To remind you," the card said, "that you matter, always have, always will." I cried. Sarah held my hand. Trevor squeezed my shoulder. On the last day of the trip, I stood on the cabin's deck, looking out at the snow-covered pines. My father came and stood beside me. "You changed this family," he said. "You know that, right?" "I just stopped pretending," I said. "That's the same thing." Back home in January, back in my classroom, a student asked me about my Christmas break. I smiled. "It was good, really good." "What made it special?" she asked. I thought about Sedona, about Claire and Marcus and the bonfire, about Grandma Ruth and Trevor's apology and Jason's admission of jealousy, about my parents actually trying, about Sarah beside me through all of it, about becoming visible to myself first. I learned that I was worth showing up for, I said, even if I had to show up for myself first. The student nodded thoughtfully, but I sat at my desk for a moment, looking at the Sedona painting on my wall, the photo on my desk of all of us at the cabin this year, Sarah and me smiling. I thought about the journey from last Christmas to this one, from being excluded to being included, from being invisible to being seen. It hadn't been easy. It had required courage I didn't know I had, but it had been worth it. Because here's what I finally understood. Your worth is not determined by whether other people choose to see it. Your worth exists independent of recognition. But when you start seeing your own worth, when you stop contorting yourself to fit into spaces that don't make room for you, something shifts. The people who genuinely care about you will make the effort, and the people who don't will reveal themselves. Setting boundaries isn't about punishing others. It's about honoring yourself. It's about saying, "I matter," even when no one else is saying it for you. Especially when no one else is saying it for you. Real family shows up not when it's convenient, but when you need them. And sometimes that family is the one you're born into, once they learn how to actually see you. Sometimes that family is the one you choose. The Claires and Grandma Ruths and Aunt Lindas who recognize your worth without needing to be convinced. I look at my students now, and I see the ones who are invisible in their families. I see the ones who are trying to earn love that should be freely given. And I tell them gently but firmly, you matter. You don't need to audition for basic respect. The right people will see your worth. The wrong people will make you question it. Choose the right people. And if you have to, choose yourself first. Because that Christmas in Sedona, sitting alone on a patio under a sky full of stars, I learned the most important lesson of my life. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give to others what you refuse to give yourself. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for everyone, including yourself, is to simply say, I matter, and I am done pretending I don't. My family is different now. Not perfect, not healed completely, but honest. And that honesty is the foundation for something real. I am different now, too. I still teach. I still care deeply about my students and my family and my friends. But I don't disappear anymore. I don't make myself small. I show up as I am, and I let people decide if that is enough for them. And the people who matter, they have decided it is more than enough. They have decided I was always enough. I just had to believe it first. So, if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been excluded, and then blamed for your exclusion, if you've ever wondered if you matter, you do. You absolutely do. And you don't need anyone's permission to start living like you matter. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the simple, radical act of choosing you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who took you for granted? How did you find the courage to choose yourself when everyone expected you to keep sacrificing? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and realize they're not alone. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about family dynamics, boundaries, and personal growth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they matter, that their feelings are valid, that choosing themselves is not selfish. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you know that you are worth showing up for. You are worth making room for. You are worth the effort. Take care of yourselves. And remember, family is not just who shares your blood. Family is who shows up, who tries, who sees you. Choose wisely. Choose yourself and build the life you deserve.